So you've probably all had the experience of working really well, where you're extremely focused and you're productive and you're enjoying it. But you've also probably had the experience where you're not working as well, where you're more distracted, maybe you're even anxious, you're dreading or reluctant. And so the question is, how do we control those two responses? Because it turns out it is actually very much under your control, whether you work at your best or whether you don't work at your best. And it's a few set of basically preparation steps that you can take before you start working to help ensure that you will work at your best, that you'll be energetic, productive, and focused. And so that's what the golden hour is. It's learning and practicing those key steps so that you can set up an hour of work to work at your very best. And I made an awesome PowerPoint presentation. I know you guys probably all love PowerPoint presentations, so that we can walk through some of the key ideas here. So can everyone see this? I guess maybe I should go into full screen mode or something, right? Let me present. How's this look? Can you guys all see that? Okay, so this is Optimal Work. That's my name, Sharif Younes. And that's the date. Today it's May 9th, 2020. So the first key point, this is like the main point of the presentation because it's really the why of Optimal Work and it's the why of the golden hour. Why should we care about working better? So the answer is this fundamental idea, which is now becoming more and more better understood in neuroscience and psychology. Optimal Work is really grounded in the best science coming out right now. So the key idea is that the brain is like a muscle that grows with vigorous exercise. So every single thing that you do, you're training your brain to do it better. So here's some examples. Learning languages. You can actually get better at learning languages if you practice. The more you speak in a foreign language, the more your brain adapts itself to that language, to making associations, to retrieving the appropriate memories, the right words, the right phrases. Public speaking. If that's something you get nervous about, well, that's because your brain is not yet ready to do it. And you can train your brain to become a better public speaker so you can speak with confidence rather than be nervous. Sports. We all know that we get better at sports with practice. A big part of that is, yes, physical, but a big part of it also is that we're actually training our brains to get better at that sport, to learn the strategies of the sport, to learn the coordination required to be good at the sport. Math. No one is inherently bad at math. Anyone can get better at math. It just means that we haven't deliberately practiced strategies for doing calculus or fractions or addition or abstract math. Whatever it is, there's part of your brain that is working on math, and you can train your brain to do math better with practice. Reading literature. Everyone can enjoy a good book. The more you read and try to enjoy literature, the more your brain will adapt. The more you write, you won't have to stare at a blank screen all day anymore, because your brain will get better at writing. It'll get better at forming clear ideas so that you can actually convey them in writing. The brain is like a muscle that grows with vigorous exercise. This is the key idea of Carol Dweck, who's a psychologist at Stanford. But then the question arises, right? So if we have this idea of our brain is growing through the challenges that we're facing, well, we also have the experience that sometimes it feels like our brain isn't growing, but that we feel stuck, or we get distracted when we work, or we get anxious. It seems like it's not all a picture about growth. So the question is, what creates that difficulty? So to explain this, I'm going to present the simplest neuroscience. Who here knows what the human brain is? Everyone, right? It's what's up here. Yeah. Okay, good. So I'm going to walk through a very simple model from psychology and neuroscience. It'll be very simple. I know you probably, maybe, I don't know if you guys have studied any neuroscience, but this will be extremely simple. It's a very simple model to help you understand why sometimes your brain gets poorly trained and can't do things very well. So it all starts with this tiny little region here called the amygdala. It's this thing highlighted in green. So it's this very small organ deep within your brain. Your amygdala is constantly scanning every single experience that you have. So it's scanning everything you see, it's scanning everything you hear, it's scanning words, images, even your own thoughts. And what is it looking for? It's looking for threats. So if your amygdala sees a saber-toothed tiger, it gets really active and it wants to prepare you for that. If your amygdala detects that you're about to go on stage, public speaking, or that you're about to take a math test, it's going to notice that there's a threat here that it needs to prepare for. Does that make sense? When it sees the threat, detects the threat, it sounds the alarm. So it produces adrenaline that it sends throughout your body. And that's what happens when you feel nervous or anxious. You get sweaty, your heart starts pounding, you get shortness of breath, you get thoughts going, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna fail, I'm gonna fail. That's the amygdala sounding the alarm that there's a threat. Then what does it do last? It watches your response. So this is where the brain adapts itself, changes based on your behavior. So there are two responses to a threat. You can approach the threat, or you can avoid the threat. So if the threat is physical, like a lion, you can run away from it, or you can strategize about what you're going to do, how you're going to approach the threat. If it's public speaking, you can run away and get super nervous and try to get out of the public speaking engagement of giving a presentation class, or you can engage the challenge, give your whole self to it, dive in enthusiastically. Your amygdala is watching your response. Do you approach or do you avoid? And then your amygdala is actually kind of smart. Because what happens is if you approach the threat, it does what's called safety learning. It starts to think, well, maybe this isn't such a big threat after all. So you're telling your amygdala by approaching the threat that this thing is not a threat. If you take even if you think you're not good at math and you still take the hardest math class, you're telling your amygdala, math is not a threat. You don't have to sound the alarm anymore. I like math. This is an opportunity that I want to approach. On the other hand, if you avoid the threat, you're confirming to your amygdala that this is a threat. So whether you approach or you avoid, this is called threat learning. You're training your brain, your amygdala, to see things as threats or opportunities. How does that make sense to everyone? Pretty good? That's the simplest possible thing you'll ever learn about neuroscience, because it makes a lot of sense. Most of neuroscience doesn't make any sense, but this makes sense because it makes sense with our experience. When we avoid things, our brain starts to see them as threats, and it makes them more challenging. We get more nervous when we face them. When we approach things and engage the challenge, our amygdala learns that this is an opportunity, and it helps us to engage them. So let's talk through how this applies to work and in particular distractions. So what's happening in your brain when you get distracted? So first, the amygdala detects a threat. So it sees this complicated math assignment or whatever homework assignment, and it doesn't really distinguish. It just sees threats. So it equates them with, say, zombies, a swarm of zombies coming to attack you. So your amygdala doesn't know, well, is it a zombie or math homework? It just knows threat. Then what does it do? So JP, what does the amygdala do when it detects a threat?
It sends like fear and nervousness in the brain.
Exactly. So it sounds the alarm. It sounds the alarm. And in the context of work, that's exactly what a distraction is. A distraction is your amygdala telling you that you have indicated that you don't want to do this type of thing. So you can see this guy, he's getting pretty frustrated with his homework. He'll start getting a distraction because his brain amygdala has detected a threat, which is the difficult work. And so it starts putting in new ideas into his head. Hey, maybe there are other things you could be doing. Maybe you could check Instagram right now. Maybe if you're really desperate, you could pull out your phone and check Snapchat. If you're really desperate, maybe you should go on Facebook. Maybe you could play video games. That might be fun. Or maybe you should just pass out on your desk and start drooling. These are all basically ways of your amygdala saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. It's the distraction is the amygdala sounding the alarm to try to help you escape the threat of homework. And then what happens is that the amygdala watches your response. So it's now fed this distraction and it looks to see, do you approach the threat, which is the homework, by doubling down and working more intensely? If you do that, you're going to train your amygdala to no longer see homework as a threat. If you avoid the work and give in to the distraction, you're confirming to your amygdala that homework is in fact a threat. So this is the idea. Your brain is a muscle that grows in response to vigorous exercise. It grows with vigorous exercise. Approaching the threat of your homework, doubling down on your work, is vigorous exercise that causes your brain to grow and become more capable of engaging challenges in your work and focusing well. The brain is like a muscle that grows with vigorous exercise. So if we want our brain to grow intellectually in our capacity to work well, we need exercise, vigorous exercise. And that's precisely what the golden hour is. The golden hour is vigorous exercise for your brain's capacity to work. Everyone knows, if you've gone to sports practice or music practice, if you want to practice well, you warm up. You prepare yourself for intense work. And that's what the golden hour is, taking deliberate steps grounded in science to prepare your mind to work at your best. So first, we set the perimeter. So this means taking care to remove all potential distractions. Most of the distractions are going to be right here on your desk. You can see the top picture. If I'm sitting down at that desk, all those items there, which there's like 10,000 Coke bottles, are potential distractions that are going to pull my attention away from the task. So setting what we call it a perimeter means clearing things out that we're not going to be using, putting our phones away, shutting down browser windows that we're not going to use, shutting off programs, finding a quiet place. All of these things are aspects of setting a perimeter to remove potential distractions. This takes like 2 minutes a day, and it's a total no-brainer because all of the things that you're going to clear off your desk are potential distractions. So it's best to get them out of the way before you start working. Step number 2 is what's called reframing. Reframing is probably the most essential skill. I'll slow down for a sec so you guys can all read this hilarious comic. Okay, good. You can see kind of how fast people read based on who starts laughing when. I guess most people are smiling, but that's okay. So in this third box, Calvin's complaining about shoveling. And Calvin's dad said, complaining or shoveling builds character, keep at it. So that's kind of a funny, kind of silly form of reframing. So what is reframing? It means deliberately seeing the opportunity in the challenge. You can think of reframing. It's the opposite of complaining. Complaining, you focus on the bad thing and you say, this stinks. I don't want to be doing this. This homework is hard. This homework is boring. I don't like this. I don't like that. That's all complaining. That actually ruins your brain. Reframing is one of the most essential skills because it's helping you identify opportunities or the good in a present challenge. So you try to understand, how is this work an opportunity for growth, practice, or learning? Mindfulness means settling your mind into the present moment. Oftentimes our mind is caught up in the past or the future. We're regretting something that happened in the past, or we're worrying about something that's happened in the future. You probably have all had the experience of reading a book and then you realize that you just read a page but didn't remember a single thing that was on that page. So that's because your mind wasn't in the present moment on the current task. So we want to there's a deliberate practice called mindfulness by which we settle our mind into the present moment by focusing on a sensation in the here and now. So it's very simple. We basically just watch our breath for like 30 seconds to a minute, and it brings our awareness from being scattered to being collected into the present moment. Once our attention is collected into the present moment, we can then challenge ourselves. So this is where we're really training our brain. This challenge step is all important. This is where we grow. This is where we improve. If we really challenge ourselves in each hour of work, it teaches our mind that this is an opportunity to be engaged, not a threat to be avoided. It helps us grow personally in self-mastery in how we do this type of work. So we say, this time I write this paper, I'm going to make an extra effort to make a really good outline before I dive in. This time before I read, I'm going to take really good notes. This time when I study for the test, I'm going to make a special effort to make really good study materials and not just go to the textbook every time I don't remember anything, but really try to recall the information. So we're always thinking, how can I raise the bar on my performance? We're thinking like a pole vaulter. When I do every time I do an activity, I want to do it just a little bit better than I did the last time. That sets us up to give us our highest level of focus, which is called flow. You'll see that these 3 steps, this is not super important, but these 3 steps match up. So your amygdala detects a threat. Reframing says, nope, 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 it's an opportunity. The amygdala sounds the alarm. Mindfulness means being willing to feel the alarm, being in the present moment. Your amygdala watches your response. That corresponds to challenge. Your response is to challenge yourself even more. That's an approach response, so it causes safety learning. So the 3 steps of the golden hour are training your brain that causes it to grow. It's vigorous exercise for your brain. So here's the 3 steps of the golden hour simplified. Reframing, mindfulness, challenge. We say ready, set, go, just to help you remember it. Reframing, ready, mindfulness, settle your mind, challenge, go, launch into the task with intense effort. Okay, so hopefully you guys were all maybe taking notes. Grab a new sheet of paper because I have a quick quiz. So most studies say that you're going to remember something way better if you quiz yourself on it right after you learn it. So does everyone have a new sheet of paper? Okay, I'll give you 30 seconds a question. So basically the idea is just force yourself to recall the information as well as you can, and then I'll give you the answers after. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Just kidding. Okay, so question 1. The brain is like a blank that blanks with blank. Fill in the blanks. Okay, next, we're just going real quick. So even just try to remember it as well as you can. What are the 3 functions of the amygdala? Okay. What type of learning does approach produce, and what about avoidance? Blank learning, blank learning. All right. Whoops, I skipped one. What is a distraction? Raise your hand if you got it. Okay. Last one. What are the 3 steps of the golden hour? Okay. So let's go over the answers real quick. The brain is like a muscle that grows with vigorous exercise. Awesome. Muscle grows, vigorous exercise. Detects threat, functions of the amygdala, sounds alarm, watches response. Safety learning and threat learning. Do you guys get all these? Pretty close. Okay. All of the above. Who got that one? Okay, awesome. Reframing mindfulness challenge. Who got that one? Nice. Okay. So now the next thing I want to do is do a real quick OptimalWork site tour just to show you kind of what we would do, what we do on Tuesdays and Fridays. Okay, so can you guys see this screen? So the golden hour is basically taking you through reframing mindfulness challenge. So we have different modes that we go through. So they're trying to build on each other to teach you more advanced concepts. So first is just reframing mindfulness challenge. Then this is dealing with some of the obstacles that we might face. Third is deepening our sense of what work can be, leading ultimately to mastery of becoming really good at our work. And then finally, discovering ideals in our work, which caps at service. So the ultimate purpose of work is service, helping other people. And that's also the ultimate way that you challenge yourself and that you reframe. If you're trying to discover the opportunity in a challenge, service is always the ultimate opportunity, because the more difficult something is, the more it helps other people. The more it helps other people, the more difficult it is. So a typical golden hour, we enter the task name, write paper, and then we kind of go through the steps together talking about them. So commit to your task. So it's little encouraging bits of information to help you prepare your mind. So this one's going in depth into the idea of the perimeter, for example. Clear your workspace. Close all browser windows and programs that aren't needed. So you kind of walk through it, and it's helping take your mind through the steps to help you then focus on the work. Find your purpose. That's reframing. So I can grow in prudence, fortitude. Fortitude is one of the great virtues. All work is an opportunity to grow in fortitude. Then mindfulness, to recollect your attention, is basically a straightforward breathing exercise to bring your attention into the present moment. And then clarifying the steps. Make an outline. Probably before that, I want to develop a thesis, et cetera, et cetera. And then we work intensely for an hour, really challenging ourselves to do our best work. and then at the end we stop.
Okay, great. Well, I think it's time to keep moving on. So thanks a lot, Sharif, for the presentation.